a beautiful winter day here in Maine, and we're headed to a maple farm. We're gonna learn how maple syrup is made, and then I'm heading home to make a delicious maple walnut cake and a fun DIY project for your breakfast table. It's gonna be a great day. Tyler, thanks for this sleigh ride through your woods. It's beautiful, and you need to introduce me to your friends.
Well, this one is Olivia. She's 7 years old, and on the other side is Katie. She's 20 years old, and they've been working together for about 4 years now.
And they're huge compared to regular horses.
Yeah, they got some size to them.
So they're made to pull sleighs and sleds?
Yeah, they're draft horses. They're made to pull instead of ride on. Mm-hmm. And they're just kind of more like a lineman in football versus a running back. They're built to be heavy and move big loads.
And they're going to be busy here in a couple weeks. We're actually headed to Eureka Farms in a minute, but they're going to be part of Maine Maple Sunday.
Yes, we do rides out there on Saturday and Sunday all day. And there'll be 2 other teams joining us if all goes well. And we'll be there giving rides all day for the public.
That sounds like a super fun event, and we'll see you there.
Thank you, we'll see you.
I'm so excited. This morning I am at the beautiful Eureka Farms in Palmyra, Maine, right down the street from my house, where they are gearing up for Maine Maple Sunday. I'm going to talk to the owner Hollis and his son Seth and find out exactly how maple syrup is made.
Good morning, Lisa. Thanks for being here at Eureka Farms today.
You have such a beautiful place. Thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me.
We are delighted.
So I'm really curious. Tell me about your family's history on this farm.
My son and I bought the farm in 2010. We've been here since then, and we've tried to apply our philosophy of making it a little better when we leave than when we got here. I've got a farm background. I come from Aroostook County. I tell people I'm as far south as I'm going. And my dad and his family were in the potato business. I grew up in that business, and they had their own brand of Maine potatoes, and it was called Eureka brand. Thus the name Eureka Farms. That's where it came from. I'm retired, and my son is retiring this year, and we've got a lot of irons in the fire here by choice, so it's pretty special to us.
So how do you make the move from potatoes to maple syrup? Seems like a little bit of a jump.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a jump. When I was 10 years old, my dad showed me how to make maple syrup, and I've always said it was like a disease. It got in my blood and it never left. So it's something I've always done all my life. And one of our goals when we were looking for land was to find a place where we would be able to do this on a commercial scale, and we have that, so we're pretty fortunate.
So you've been doing this for about 10 years, and you're gearing up right now for a Maine Maple Sunday. What's that all about?
Well, it's a work in progress all year long. Maine Maple Sunday is always on our mind throughout the year. It's a really big event for us. We choose for it to be. We put a lot into it. We run it with 50 volunteers that have as much passion for it as we do. And it's a tremendous way to promote our town, Palmyra, and it's a great way to promote our business and our products. And we try to do it by showing people that they can come here and have a good time. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. And we like to show the process. A lot of people have never seen how Maine maple syrup is made. Mm-hmm. And so it's I call it a rite of spring. It's cabin fever holiday.
Absolutely, we've been, and you're right, it kind of kicks off spring even though it's still the middle of the winter here in Maine, but it's a great family day.
On Sunday, we'll dip 10 tubs of Gifford's Maine ice cream and give that away for free
that's
with
right,
our
with
maple
this-
syrup on it. And we do maple donuts here. Some places don't, we do. And last year we fried just under 10,000 maple donuts. The line was 100 long and it was short.
So that's kind of the kickoff of your season, I guess, but you're open year-round, correct?
And our claim to fame is that we're open 365 days a year, daylight till dark. If it's daylight, we're open, come on in.
Wow.
And we feel that Maine Maple Sunday, it's a great event. We love doing it, and it's a great way to give back. It's a tremendous influence on our market and the market in general for the state of Maine and maple syrup.
But it's a lot less chaotic to come other times of the year. The lines aren't as long, let's put it that way.
That's true. That's true. It's a little more modest other times of the
Right.
year. But Maine Maple Sunday gets us acquainted with a lot of people that didn't know we're here. I think they like to call us Palmyra's best kept secret, and it opens the doors to the fact that there's really something going on at the end of this dead end road, and we can see the jump in business every year thereafter.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Hollis. This has been really interesting.
You're very welcome. We're delighted that you chose to come out and see us here at Eureka Farms. I think my son Seth is looking for you. He's going to give you a little tour of the grove and share some information that he has about our operation.
I can't wait. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing me out to your maple grove, Seth. I'm really excited to learn the whole process of tapping trees.
Well, it's a pleasure having you here today, Lisa. There's a number of different processes to extract sap from a maple tree, but it all starts with basically just drilling a hole into the tree, and then you go from there.
Does it hurt the tree to drill the hole?
No, the tree will heal itself. It's a living organism. It'll heal itself, and over time you won't even see the hole. As far as the sap extraction from the tree, we're just taking a small portion of the sap that's feeding all the limbs that are above us, and so the tree has the rest of the trunk all the way around to feed it sap, so it doesn't hurt the tree a bit.
So show me what we do.
All right. We like to use a nice sharp drill bit so it doesn't chew up the inside of the tree, and we have a nice smooth hole, and we just simply in and out just like that.
So you went in a couple inches.
Yeah, it's about an inch or so in there.
Okay.
So then we just simply put our spile in there, give it a few taps so there's a decent seal on there.
That's what it's called, tapping a tree.
That's tapping a tree. That's exactly it. All right. Then we just simply hang a bucket on there, put a cover on, keep the snow out.
So how soon will the sap start flowing?
Mother Nature is the one who decides it all, but 20 degrees or so in the evening or at night, and then 40-ish during the day with some nice bright sunshine. That'll spark the tree to start thinking it's springtime and start creating some leaves.
I love this because it's so traditional and you just drive by and sometimes see them on the side of the road, but you don't actually collect the sap this way any longer.
No, we like to put these out for people to see. It's not the best way to produce maple sap. There's a new means. We use a vacuum system now to pull sap out of the tree, and that's what producers are using mostly now.
So let's go see that.
All right, let's go.
Okay, Seth, so what are we looking at here?
So we looked at the traditional way before, and this is our pipeline. So we run a vacuum system here. So the sap goes, through the tap, just like we tapped the other tree. This one is not tapped yet, but it will be. So it runs through the hose, and then it goes down to a bigger hose, and then it goes into a sap collection tank.
Seems a lot easier than individual buckets and dumping them out, and keeps the bugs out too.
Yeah, it is a lot easier, no doubt about it. Less labor intensive. You go to one collection point instead of hundreds, thousands sometimes.
Right, and these stay up year round.
They do. We do our best to try to clean these out each year. You can tell that these had sap in them last year, and they still look pretty clean.
So at your farm, you originally started with the bucket method and switched to this somewhere
Yes.
along the way?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We did start with the buckets, and over time, we've started doing our pipeline more and more each year.
How many gallons of sap do you collect, and then how much syrup does that translate into?
For sap to syrup ratio, it's about 40 gallons to 1. So 40 gallons of sap will make you a gallon of syrup.
So this year, how many trees will you have tapped on your property?
We'll be around 1,000 taps this year, we think. It's kind of hard to tell when you're going through them and putting up the lines, but when we start putting out the taps, we'll have a good count, but it'll be around 1,000.
So I noticed this is sort of sloped downhill, I assume for a reason.
Yes.
Gravity. So where does all this sap end up?
Well, we have a couple of collection points around the property, and we'll go down and check out one of them.
Great. So all the lines lead to this. So
Yes.
what do we have here?
This is what we call a sap collection area, and
Okay.
basically we don't have it quite hooked up yet, but in the very near future, our vacuum pump will be pulling a vacuum on the pipeline, pulling the sap out of the trees. It'll come through the releaser, and then as the releaser fills up, it'll dump it into our tank, and we'll come along with our gators and remove the sap and take it back up to the sugar house.
All right, so let's head back and see where all the magic happens.
Great.
So this is the sugar shack.
This is it.
This is where it all happens.
Yes.
Tell me about this.
This is a wood-fired evaporator. A lot of producers are using oil-fired, but we still have wood.
Okay.
So this is where all the sap gets evaporated and turned into syrup. The sap, we bring it in, and then eventually it goes into the big tank upstairs. It gets gravity fed down into the back of the evaporator, and through specific gravity, as it gets thicker, it'll move through this pan and become closer to syrup as it goes, and then it goes down into the finished pan in the front.
So it knows when it's done and it moves into the pan.
Exactly.
That's pretty
exactly.
cool. So how long does it take from sap to syrup, roughly?
Because it's such a big unit, we can put 150 gallons of sap in here. You know, it's hard to kind of calculate just when that sap goes from there to syrup.
Right, but it's relatively quickly, I guess, once it gets in here.
Yes.
And you said it's a wood burner, so you
This
have
is.
to put logs in it.
Right, yeah, we have to fill wood every 6.5 minutes to keep it going.
After you collect the sap, how quickly do you have to get it in here, or does it matter? Can it sit for a while?
No, you want to get it in as quick as you can, because
Okay.
the longer it sits, the starches eat up the sugars, and it takes more to make the syrup.
I don't know much about maple syrup, but I do know that there are different grades.
There is. The state of Maine requires that we grade our syrup, and we've got a couple of representations here of the different grades. So the lighter being a golden delicate, and then it goes into an amber rich and a dark and a very dark, and then there's a grade B that you can't sell.
And you grade them just looking at them and the color?
Yeah, you can do that. They provide us with samples so we can grade it that way, but there's also a machine that you can put a sample into,
Oh,
and
cool.
it'll grade it for you. Syrup becomes different colors based on the time of year that it's taken. So the later in the year, the darker the syrup, most of the time.
I brought home some gorgeous maple syrup from the farm earlier today, and I am excited to share with you a recipe for maple walnut cake that uses not only the maple syrup, but also some of my fresh eggs. This recipe is really easy. First, I'm going to whisk my dry ingredients and then get my wet ingredients blended, then mix the two together, add some walnuts, and put it in the oven. So first, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder to 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Then I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And then I'm just going to lightly whisk it to make sure everything is combined. So in my large mixing bowl, I'm going to add 2 sticks of butter that I have at room temperature. And I'm going to mix that up a little bit. Then into that, I'm going to add a 1.25 cups of maple syrup. I'm using maple syrup in place of all the sugar in this recipe. In a lot of baking recipes, you can substitute maple syrup for sugar. It's more nutritious for one thing, and it adds a really great flavor. You might just have to cook things a little bit longer because it is a little bit more liquid. Then I'm just gonna add a little bit of vanilla bean paste. I'm just gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl and then add some sour cream. So I have 3/4 cup of sour cream. You could also add Greek yogurt instead if you wanted to. Just makes it really moist and adds a little bit of fat to the recipe. Then I'm gonna add 2 eggs. Add them one at a time and make sure each one is combined before I add the second one. Then I'll add my second egg. I just collected these eggs this morning. My spring layers have been laying great through the winter, so we've had eggs for baking all winter long, which is really great because normally the chickens slow down with the shorter days, but those baby chicks will lay their first winter, providing us with eggs while everybody else takes a winter break. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to add my dry ingredients a little bit at a time. On low speed so the flour doesn't shoot all over the place. All right, so that looks really good. Now I'm just gonna stir in some walnuts that I just kind of rough chopped, maybe about, I don't know, 1/2 cup. Nice generous 1/2 cup. Just like the maple syrup can substitute for sugar in recipes, you can also give your baby chicks maple syrup this spring. You like to give them sugar water for the first couple days to give them a little bit more energy, especially if you get them shipped through the mail. And maple syrup has iron and calcium and magnesium, lots of B vitamins, so it's a nice substitute for the sugar water to give them some energy and a good start in life, or if someone has heat exhaustion or just a chicken looks like she's not doing well, a little bit of maple syrup or maple syrup mixed into the water is a good idea. So that looks good. I'm just going to get it into my pan and then get it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 40 minutes or until a toothpick in the center comes out clean. I have an 8x8 dish that I have lined with parchment paper to make the cake come out easier, and I like to leave it overlapping over the edges so it's easier to lift it out when it's done. While the cake is baking, since I have the oven on, I think I have just enough time to make some maple bacon, because come on, why not? Maple bacon. I've got some fresh thick cut local bacon here and it's gonna be perfect. So what I did was I lined a baking sheet with some tin foil and then I just put a wire metal rack on top of it that the bacon can go on. I'm just gonna lay my bacon out in strips. So I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of brown sugar to my bowl and then about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. I'm just gonna mix it all together till it's combined. Maybe add a tiny bit more maple syrup because I want it so I can brush it onto the bacon strips. Then with a brush, I'm just going to brush the bacon strips with the mixture. So that looks great, and now I'm just going to grind some fresh pepper on top of the bacon strips. The timing worked out great. The cake is about ready to come out of the oven, so I'll put the bacon in at the same 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes until it's all nice and crispy. While the cake is cooling, I'm just gonna make a quick glaze for it using confectioner's sugar and a little bit of maple syrup. So I'm just gonna add 2 cups of confectioner's sugar to my mixing bowl and then drizzle in maple syrup until it's a nice consistency that I can pour it over the cake. So that looks really good, and I guess that was about a half a cup maybe that I'm added in. And I'm just gonna frost the cake and sprinkle some walnuts on it, and it'll be done. The cake smells really good, and it's cooled enough that I can now put the glaze on it. I'd like to thank Betsy from Eureka Farms for this really simple glaze recipe. And I'll just top them off with some chopped walnuts, and they'll be ready to enjoy. I have a fun, quick DIY that I want to share with you. It's actually one of my favorite projects for my new book, DIY Chicken Keeping. I started with a scrap piece of wood I found in the garage, about 6 by 9 or 6 by 10. Doesn't have to be this exact size, but something close to this. Then I just rounded the corners off with a jigsaw. If the board is a little rough, you could sand it, but I kind of like a rustic look. Then I used a 1.5 inch hole saw bit. These are actually used to drill holes in doors for doorknobs, but they happen to be the exact perfect size for an egg to sit in. So I have one of these, and I actually used it in a couple projects in my book. So it's a good investment if you don't have one. So I just drilled 2 holes in my board on one end, and then I had extra drawer holes from when we did our kitchen. And I glued one to each end to make handles for my board. And then I just wiped it with some food safe cutting board finish, just to kind of make it, you know, a little bit more of a kitchen item. And it's the perfect board to serve eggs, toast, and bacon, or whatever you want to serve for breakfast in bed. What a fun day today was. This is what winter in Maine is all about, but it's still getting dark pretty early, so I wanted to go out and get a quick ski in before the sun goes down. I hope you'll join me on Maple Sunday, and come back next time.